If you're tired of getting steamrolled by aggressive e4 players, the Botvinnik-Carls variation of the Caro-Kann is your secret weapon. It's solid, active, and lets you punish early overextensions with clean, logical moves without memorizing 50 moves of theory. White opens with their king's pawn to control the center. Black responds with the Caro-Kann defense, a pawn to c6, preparing to strike back in the center with the d-pawn. Now white plays pawn to d4 and we respond with pawn to d5. White pushes forward with the e-pawn again, gaining space and entering the advance variation. Black immediately counters with a pawn to c5, challenging white's central space. White supports their center with a pawn to c3, solidifying their grip. Black brings out the queenside knight to c6, continuing the pressure on the d4 pawn. White develops their kingside knight to f3, preparing to castle and defend the center. Black plays their light-squared bishop to g4, pinning the knight to the queen, a classic Caro-Kann idea. White responds with bishop to e2, preparing to castle and potentially unpin later. Black calmly plays e6, building a solid pawn chain and opening the path for their light-square bishop. White castles kingside, getting their king safe. Black develops their kingside knight to e7, keeping the structure solid and planning to redirect the knight later. White pushes the h-pawn, questioning the bishop on g4. Black decides to trade bishop for knight, giving up the pin and slightly damaging white's pawn structure. White recaptures with their bishop, keeping active pieces. Black now brings the other knight to f5, aiming to apply pressure and occupy strong squares. White plays their bishop to e3, defending the knight and eyeing central squares. Black moves the queen to b6, targeting the d4 pawn and increasing queenside pressure. White defends by pushing a pawn to b3, but that weakens the light squares. Black takes the chance to open the center and trades pawns on d4. White recaptures with the c3 pawn, and now black jumps in with their knight, trading on d4 and recapturing with the queen. After white trades queens, black recaptures with their knight, centralizing it. White develops their queenside knight to d2, and black replies with bishop to b4, pinning it. White challenges the pin by bringing a rook to the center. Black moves their knight to c6, possibly rerouting it or applying more pressure. White plays a pawn to a3, kicking the bishop. Black captures the knight on d2 and trades it off. White recaptures with the rook. Now black captures a central pawn with their knight, taking on e5. White develops their bishop to e2, targeting the kingside and stabilizing their position. Here black has a great position and the engine is giving -4 for black. We are diving back into this exciting game where white is facing a tough situation after a series of sharp exchanges in the opening. Let's go. We start with the classic Caro-Kann defense, a solid and reliable choice for black. White opens with e4, and black responds with c6, aiming to control the center with a very robust setup. White pushes d4, and black replies with d5, setting up the central pawn structure. The game then enters the advance variation as white plays e5, and black counters by pushing c5 to challenge white's center immediately. White continues with c3, reinforcing their central pawn structure, while black develops the knight with nc6, eyeing the center and preparing to put pressure on white's d4 pawn. White now develops nf3, and black plays bg4, pinning white's knight to the queen. This move is quite typical in the Caro-Kann, exerting pressure on white's position. White responds with b2, breaking the pin and preparing to castle, while black solidifies their position with e6, making space for the dark-squared bishop and preparing to develop further. White pushes h3 to stop black's bishop from moving to g4 again, and black takes the opportunity to exchange bishops with bxf3, simplifying the position slightly. White recaptures with bxf3, keeping control of the center, and black immediately develops their queen to qb6, attacking the b2 pawn and putting pressure on white's queenside. White castles kingside with o, a natural move to secure the king. Black then takes on d4, capturing white's pawn with qxd4 and engaging in an exchange of queens, simplifying the game further. After white recaptures with qxd4, black decides to exchange queens, bringing their knight to nxd4, centralizing the knight and preparing to increase the pressure. Now white develops their bishop to b1, ready to protect their queenside and complete development. Black plays a6, preparing for potential expansion on the queenside and preventing white's knight from jumping to b5. White then moves their bishop to b3, aiming to keep it active and increasing central control. Black develops their knight with nc6, reinforcing their control over the center and also eyeing white's d4 square. Now white plays f4, attempting to open up the kingside and increase their attacking chances. Black responds with g7, preparing to bring the knight to a more active square while also preparing for a potential kingside defense. White develops the knight to nc3, maintaining pressure on the center, and black plays d4, pushing forward with their pawns to seize space and control. White's knight moves to e4, attempting to maintain influence over the center. Black responds by advancing their pawn to dxc3, creating an open file for potential rook activity and making it clear that they are taking the initiative. White now faces a critical decision. Black's n6 plus forces the white king to move. The white king moves to kd7, a dangerous position as the king is exposed in the center and no longer has the safety of the pawn shield. White then sacrifices the knight by playing nxf7, hopping to create an attack, but black calmly responds with rg8, reinforcing the kingside and protecting the h8 rook. White attempts to activate their bishop with bb3, but black now plays e2, pushing the passed pawn toward promotion. At this point, black is clearly winning with a dangerous passed pawn in superior position. White ultimately resigns, unable to stop black's advance. That was an incredible game, and it shows just how dangerous the Botvinnik-Carls variation can be for white. Black played with incredible accuracy, seizing opportunities and gradually dismantling white's position. If you enjoyed the breakdown and want to see more high-level strategies, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Keep practicing those openings and you'll be surprising your opponents in no time. Thanks for watching.